The massive station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was the size of a small moon, built by 12 different alien races working together. Inside its metal halls, the Galactic Council met to decide the fate of billions of beings across the galaxy. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked down the long corridor toward the main chamber. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore the blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. She had been humanity's voice in the Council for 10 years now. 10 long years of trying to make peace between races that seemed to love war more than life itself. The chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the massive circular room held representatives from over 40 different species. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Sarah still felt surprised when she saw them. The Korath looked like giant lizards covered in metal armor. The Zephyrians moved like a group mind, their bug-like bodies clicking and buzzing as they talked without words. The Vex Syndicate members wore expensive clothes and had cold eyes that saw everything as something to buy or sell. Sarah took her seat at the small table marked with Earth's symbol. Around her, the other ambassadors looked at her with expressions she had learned to read over the years. Some showed mild interest. Others showed nothing but contempt. None showed respect. The council speaker, a tall blue alien called Thex 9, began the meeting. The council will now hear Earth's proposal regarding trade regulations. Sarah stood up. She had worked on this proposal for months. It was simple and fair. All races would follow the same rules when trading with each other. No more cheating smaller species. No more using military threats to force bad deals. Just honest trade that helped everyone. Honored council members, Sarah began. Humanity proposes that we create universal standards for interstellar commerce. These rules would protect smaller species from economic exploitation and create stable markets that benefit everyone. She explained the details clearly. The proposal would stop the Vex Syndicate from using their economic power to crush weaker species. It would prevent the Korath from threatening to attack anyone who refused their trade terms. It would make sure that every species, no matter how small or weak, could trade fairly. When Sarah finished, the chamber was quiet for a moment. Then Ambassador Vex Prime 7 began to laugh. His laugh sounded like metal scraping against stone. The humans want to tell us how to conduct business, he said. How amusing. Earth has been in this council for 50 years, and in all that time, what have you accomplished? You make peace between others, yes. You send food to hungry worlds, yes. But what power do you have? What strength? You are children playing at being adults. The Korath representative, war leader Thrak, slammed his massive fist on his table. The humans speak of fair trade while they have never won a single battle. They have never conquered a world or claimed territory. They are weak. The strong should rule the weak. This is the natural way. More aliens joined in the criticism. They called humans soft. They said Earth's people were naive dreamers who did not understand the real galaxy. They laughed at the idea that humans could tell warrior races and ancient civilizations how to behave. Sarah felt her face grow hot with anger, but she kept her voice calm. This was not the first time the Council had rejected human ideas simply because they came from humans. Earth's representatives had tried to stop 3 different wars in the past decade. Each time they had been ignored. When those wars killed millions, the Council had asked humans to help clean up the mess. The proposal is rejected, Speaker Thex 9 announced. The vote is 38 against, 2 in favor. Sarah sat down heavily. Only 2 species had voted with humanity. 2 small, peaceful races that had no power in the Council. Everyone else had voted against the proposal without even thinking about it seriously. As the meeting continued, Sarah's mind wandered. She thought about her daughter back on Earth, about the schools and hospitals humanity had built on alien worlds, about the refugee camps where human volunteers worked to help victims of wars they had tried to prevent. What did any of it matter if the galaxy saw kindness as weakness? The next item on the agenda made Sarah's blood run cold. War leader Thrak stood up, his armor reflecting the chamber's lights. The Korath Empire announces a new expansion into the Outer Rim territories, he declared. We claim all unclaimed systems in Grid Sector 7. Sarah shot to her feet. War leader Thrak, Grid Sector 7 is not unclaimed. The colony ship New Hope is currently traveling to the Kepler 442 system in that sector. 50,000 human colonists are aboard that ship. Thrak's reptilian face showed what might have been a smile. I see no human flags on any worlds in that sector. If these colonists wish to settle there, they may do so under Korath rule. They will pay taxes to the Empire and follow our laws. Those colonists left Earth 20 years ago, Sarah said, her voice rising. They sold everything they owned to buy passage on that ship. They are not soldiers or conquerors. They are families looking for a new home. Then they should have chosen a different destination, Thrak replied coldly. Sarah looked around the chamber, hoping to see support from other ambassadors. Instead, she saw boredom, indifference, or worse, amusement. To them, this was just politics as usual. The strong taking from the weak, just as it had always been. I call for a vote to protect the New Hope colony ship, Sarah demanded. Seconded, said the representative from Altair Prime, one of the few species that usually supported human positions. The vote was swift and brutal. 39 species voted against protecting the colony ship. Only 3 voted to help humanity. As Sarah left the chamber that day, she felt something die inside her chest. It was not hope. She had lost that months ago. It was something deeper. It was the part of her that still believed the galaxy could be reasoned with. 3 weeks later, the reports came in. The Korath First Fleet had intercepted the New Hope as it approached Kepler 4 and 42b. The colony ship had tried to negotiate. It had offered to pay taxes to share the planet, to do anything to avoid conflict. War leader Thrak had given them exactly 1 hour to surrender completely and accept slavery. When the colonists refused, his ships had opened fire. The New Hope's weak shields lasted less than 10 minutes. All 50,000 colonists died. Men, women, children, elderly grandparents who had dreamed of seeing a new sky, all gone in a flash of plasma fire. Sarah stood in the council chamber once more, holding the report in her trembling hands. Around her, the alien ambassadors listened to her account of the massacre with polite attention, as if she were reading a weather report. The Korath Empire violated interstellar law, Sarah said, her voice barely controlled. They murdered 50,000 innocent people. I demand that this council take action immediately. Speaker Thex-9 looked bored. The Korath acted within their sovereign rights. The human ship entered claimed Korath space. After the Korath claimed space that was already being settled by humans, Sarah shot back. The council finds that while the Korath actions were regrettable, they were technically legal under current interstellar law, the speaker announced. However, the human response to this incident has been noted with concern. Sarah felt the world spin around her. Human response? What human response? Earth's government has recalled all human aid workers from Korath space and suspended trade relations. This overreaction to a legal territorial dispute is noted in the official record. The Council censures Earth for this breach of diplomatic protocol. The Chamber voted to censure humanity for being upset about genocide. The final vote was 41 in favor of censuring Earth, with only 2 abstentions. That night, Sarah sat alone in her quarters aboard the human embassy ship. A message waited for her on the secure communication channel from Earth. It was from Fleet Admiral Marcus Rivera, head of the Terran Defense Force. Sarah, the message began. I know what happened at the Council today. I know about the censure vote. I want you to know that Earth has heard the galaxy's message loud and clear. We tried to be nice. We tried to be reasonable. We tried to make peace. The galaxy has decided that human kindness is weakness and human lives have no value. Rivera paused, and when he continued, his voice was different, colder, harder. Effective immediately. You are ordered to withdraw from all Galactic Council activities. Pack your things and come home, Sarah. Earth is done being nice. It is time the galaxy learned what humans are really capable of when we stop trying to be the good guys. The message ended with official orders bearing the seal of the United Earth government. Sarah stared at the screen for a long time. Then she began to pack. As she folded her diplomatic uniform for the last time, she found herself smiling. It was not a nice smile. The age of human diplomacy was over. What came next would be something entirely different. Dr. Elena Vasquez walked through the underground corridors of Research Station Prometheus, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains. For 30 years she had worked in these hidden tunnels, leading Project Pandora, Earth's most classified research program. Today, finally, her work would see the light of day. The security doors opened one by one as Elena passed through checkpoint after checkpoint. Each door required different scans: retina, DNA, brainwave patterns. and finally a psychological evaluation to make sure she was still mentally stable enough to handle the secrets within. The main laboratory was huge, stretching out like an underground city. Thousands of scientists worked at stations filled with alien technology, biological samples, and weapons that no alien species suspected humans could build. Elena had spent decades studying every member race of the Galactic Council, learning their weaknesses, their fears, their biology, and their psychology. Dr. Vasquez called her assistant, Dr. James Park. Admiral Rivera is here for the final briefing. Elena nodded and walked to the main conference room. Admiral Rivera sat at the head of a long metal table, surrounded by Earth's top military leaders. These men and women had spent 50 years pretending to be peaceful, while secretly preparing for the war they knew would come. "Doctor," Rivera said as she entered, "please tell us the galaxy is as weak as we hoped." Elena smiled grimly and activated the holographic display in the center of the table. Images of different alien species appeared in the air, rotating slowly as data scrolled beside each one. "Admiral, the galaxy is weaker than we dared hope," she began. 50 years of careful observation and secret research have revealed that every single species in the Galactic Council has critical weaknesses that we can exploit. The first image showed a Korath warrior in full armor. The Korath think they are the greatest warriors in the galaxy, but their culture makes them predictable. They follow honor codes that we can turn against them. They fight informal battle formations that worked well against other aliens, but will fail completely against human tactics. Most importantly, they have never faced an enemy that fights to win instead of fighting for glory. Rivera leaned forward. "What about their superior technology and larger numbers?" "Technology means nothing if you cannot adapt quickly," Elena replied. "The Korath have fought the same way for 1,000 years. We have studied their battle records. They are excellent at ritual combat and formal warfare, but they have never faced guerrilla tactics, psychological warfare, or enemies who refuse to follow their rules." The image changed to show the Zephyrians, insect-like creatures that moved as one hive mind. The Zephyrians are dangerous because they think as one organism, but that is also their greatest weakness. Disrupt their mental connections and the entire species becomes confused and helpless. We have developed neural jamming technology that can block their hive mind communications. Dr. Park added, "We tested it on captured Zephyrian samples. When their mental link was cut, they became paralyzed with terror. They had never experienced individual thought before." Elena continued through each species. The Vex Syndicate relied entirely on economic power and hired mercenaries. Crash their economy and their military would disappear overnight. The Altarians were physically weak and had no real weapons technology. The crystal beings from Rigel were vulnerable to specific sound frequencies that could shatter their bodies. "Every single species has a weakness," Elena concluded, "but more importantly, they all have the same weakness. They have no idea what humans are actually capable of." Admiral Rivera stood up and walked to the holographic display. He reached out and touched one of the alien images, and it dissolved into light particles. "For 50 years, he said quietly, we have played the role of peaceful mediators and helpless victims. We let them think we were weak because weak creatures are not threats. They studied us, yes, but they only studied our diplomats and aid workers. They never bothered to learn about our military history, our capacity for violence, or our talent for war." He turned to face the room full of officers. Every human explorer ship that traveled to alien worlds carried a full intelligence team. Every cultural exchange program was a cover for deep reconnaissance. Every humanitarian mission included soldiers gathering tactical data. While the aliens thought we were being friendly, we were learning everything about them: their military bases, their supply lines, their command structures, their deepest fears. Elena brought up another display, this one showing human colonies scattered across the galaxy. "We have 47 official human colonies on various worlds. What the aliens do not know is that we have over 300 hidden bases on supposedly empty planets. We have been preparing supply depots, weapons caches, and training facilities throughout the galaxy for decades." The display changed again, showing innocent-looking human civilians on alien worlds. Better yet, the galaxy thinks all humans are civilians. They have no idea that 60% of our refugees and workers on alien planets are actually trained soldiers. We have sleeper agents embedded in every major alien civilization. Dr. Park activated another section of the display. The aliens also underestimated human industrial capacity. While they saw Earth as a pleasant farming world with some light manufacturing, we have actually been converting our entire planet into a war machine. Every civilian factory can switch to military production within hours. Every scientific research station is actually a weapons development facility. Rivera smiled coldly. The Korath believe they have the largest fleet in the galaxy. They are correct. They do have the most ships that the galaxy knows about. What they do not know is that Earth has been building warships in the asteroid belt for 30 years. Our hidden fleet is larger than all alien fleets combined. Elena brought up the final set of displays. Weapons and technologies that no alien had ever seen before.
Biological weapons designed specifically for each alien species.
Cyber warfare programs that can cripple their computer systems. Nanite swarms that can destroy their technology from within. Psychological warfare techniques based on deep studies of alien minds. She paused and looked around the room. But our greatest weapon is something they cannot understand or prepare for. Every species in the galaxy evolved on safe worlds with few predators. They developed civilization through cooperation with their environment. Humans evolved on a death world where everything tried to kill us. We are natural predators who learned to work together to hunt bigger prey. Dr. Park nodded. The aliens think that cooperation makes us weak. They do not realize that human cooperation is not like their cooperation. When they work together, it is for mutual benefit. When humans work together, it is to destroy enemies more efficiently. Admiral Rivera walked back to his seat. The galaxy is about to learn the difference between a species that evolved to build civilizations and a species that evolved to end them. We tried to be builders for 50 years. We tried to be their friends, their helpers, their peacekeepers. They repaid our kindness by murdering 50,000 innocent people and then censuring us for being upset about it. He stood up again and looked at each officer in turn. Effective immediately, Operation Reckoning is authorized. Dr. Vasquez, begin deploying the biological agents. Dr. Park, activate all sleeper agents and hidden bases. Colonel Martinez, begin moving our fleets into position. Elena felt a chill run down her spine, but also something else. Satisfaction. For 30 years she had watched reports of alien cruelty, alien wars, alien contempt for human life. She had designed weapons to fight back, always hoping they would never be needed. But the galaxy had made its choice. What are our rules of engagement? Colonel Martinez asked. Rivera's expression hardened. There are no rules of engagement. The galaxy has shown us that they do not believe in rules. They kill civilians and call it legal. They commit genocide and call it territorial expansion. They mock mercy and reward cruelty. He paused and looked out through the reinforced windows toward the surface, toward the stars that held so much alien hatred. The Korath started this war when they murdered the New Hope colonists. The rest of the galaxy continued it when they refused to seek justice for those deaths. They want to know what humans are capable of when we stop being nice. They are about to find out. Elena began typing commands into her computer. Across the galaxy, signals went out to hidden human bases, sleeper agents, and secret research facilities. The transformation was beginning. Doctor, Rivera said quietly, I want you to understand something. We are not doing this because we hate the aliens. We are doing this because we love humanity. Every human who died because we were too peaceful to fight back. Every colony that was destroyed while we begged for mercy. Every time they laughed at our kindness. All of that ends now. Elena nodded. The galaxy taught us that strength is the only language they understand. We are about to become very fluent speakers. Above them, 3 kilometers of rock and earth hid the underground facility from alien detection. But soon nothing would be hidden anymore. The age of human secrecy was ending. The age of human war was about to begin. In hidden bases throughout the galaxy, human agents received their activation codes. Captain Marcus Rivera stood on the bridge of the TDS Vengeance, watching the red giant star Korath Prime grow larger on the main screen. Around his ship, the human battle fleet moved through space like hungry wolves approaching their prey. 47 warships that had been built in secret, crewed by soldiers who had trained for decades for this exact moment. The Korath homeworld system was heavily defended. 3 rings of defensive stations surrounded the planet, and the Korath First Fleet, over 200 ships, waited in formation near their homeworld. War leader Thrak himself commanded the defense from his flagship. A massive dreadnought called the Blood Honor. Communications incoming from the Korath fleet, reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from her station. War Leader Thrak wants to speak with you. Captain Rivera smiled coldly. Put him through. The main screen changed to show the reptilian face of War Leader Thrak. His armor was polished to a mirror shine, and his yellow eyes glowed with confidence and contempt. Human Captain, Thrak began, you have brought 47 ships to face over 200. Your species' reputation for intelligence appears to be greatly exaggerated. Turn around now and I might allow some of your ships to escape with their lives. Rivera stepped forward so his face filled the screen. War Leader Thrak, you murdered 50,000 innocent humans. Men, women, children, elderly people who just wanted to find a new home. You killed them all without mercy. Thrak shrugged, his massive shoulders moving like mountains. They entered Korath space. They were given the chance to surrender and serve the Empire. They chose death instead. I gave them exactly what they chose. You gave them 1 hour to decide between slavery and death, Rivera said quietly. That was not a choice. That was cruelty for its own sake. The strong rule the weak, Thrak replied. This is the natural order of the universe. Your species refuses to accept this truth, which is why you will always be victims instead of victors. Rivera nodded slowly. You are right about one thing, Thrak. This is about the strong ruling the weak. You are about to learn which of us is actually stronger. He made a cutting motion with his hand, and Lieutenant Kim ended the transmission. On the tactical display, the Korath fleet was moving into their traditional battle formation, a wall of heavy ships in front, with lighter vessels supporting from behind. It was the same formation they had used for 1,000 years, the same formation that had conquered dozens of other alien species. Analysis, Rivera ordered. Lieutenant Commander Chen, his tactical officer, brought up detailed scans of the enemy fleet. They are following the Korath battle manual exactly, sir. Formation 7, the Iron Wall. Every ship in its designated position, no variation from standard doctrine. Rivera turned to his communications officer. Signal the fleet. Begin Operation Schoolyard. Across the human fleet, ships began to move in ways that confused the Korath observers. Instead of forming a battle line to face the Iron Wall formation, the human ships scattered in all directions. Some dove below the system's orbital plane. Others climbed high above it. Several ships seemed to be running away entirely. On the Blood Honor, War Leader Thrak watched the human fleet disperse with growing contempt. The humans scatter like frightened prey animals, he announced to his bridge crew. This will not even be a proper battle. Signal all ships. Advance and destroy them one by one. The Korath fleet began moving forward, maintaining their perfect formation. Their commanders had studied the battles of other species, and they knew that scattered enemies were easy to defeat. A concentrated attack could overwhelm isolated ships before they could help each other. But the Korath had never fought humans before. As the first Korath ships reached the scattered human vessels, they discovered that the humans were not fleeing at all. They were setting up ambushes. 3 human ships would suddenly appear from behind an asteroid, attack a single Korath vessel with overwhelming firepower, then disappear again before reinforcements could arrive. They fight without honor, growled Commander Vexka from his bridge. They refuse to face us in proper battle. War Leader Thrak felt the first stirrings of unease. In every battle the Korath had ever fought, enemies eventually formed battle lines and fought ship to ship, warrior to warrior. This enemy seemed to have no interest in honorable combat. Then the real surprise began. Hidden among the asteroids of the outer system, human ships began broadcasting on all Korath military frequencies. But instead of threats or demands for surrender, they broadcast something far more dangerous. Recordings of Korath officers insulting their superiors, questioning orders and expressing doubts about the war. The recordings were fake, created by human intelligence specialists who had studied Korath psychology for decades, but they sounded completely real, and they were designed to trigger the Korath obsession with honor and hierarchy. This is Sub-Commander Grak of the Night Terror, one broadcast began. War Leader Thrak is a fool who leads us all to death for his own glory. Why should we die for his mistakes? Every Korath officer hearing the broadcast knew it was supposedly from another ship in their own fleet. Within minutes, the Korath military network was flooded with accusations, counter-accusations, and demands for honor duels to settle questions of loyalty. Commander Vexka turned to his communications officer. Did Sub-Commander Grack really send that message? I do not know, sir. His ship is not responding to direct calls. Then he is either a traitor or dead. Either way, he has dishonored our fleet. Similar conversations were happening on dozens of Korath ships. Officers demanded permission to leave formation to settle honor disputes with each other. Ships began changing course to confront other Korath vessels. The perfect iron wall formation began to fall apart as individual commanders chose personal honor over tactical discipline. Captain Rivera watched the Korath fleet descend into chaos and felt a grim satisfaction. Now, he ordered. The scattered human ships suddenly converged from all directions, but not on the Korath fleet as a whole. Instead, they focused on isolated groups of enemy vessels that had broken away from the main formation. Human ships moved faster and turned more quickly than the heavy Korath vessels expected. Human weapons hit harder and more accurately than alien intelligence had predicted. But the real shock came when the first boarding pods launched from human ships. Lieutenant Colonel Sandra Martinez led the first boarding action against a Korath heavy cruiser. Her Marines wore powered armor that let them move like dancers while carrying weapons that could punch through Korath battlesuits. They cut through the enemy ship's hull and poured into the corridors like an unstoppable tide. The Korath warriors inside the ship had trained their entire lives for combat. They were strong, fast, and absolutely fearless. They had conquered dozens of other species through superior fighting ability. They lasted exactly 7 minutes against human Marines. Colonel Martinez moved through the ship's corridors like death itself. Her armor's sensors showed her exactly where each enemy was hiding. Her weapons could fire around corners, and her training had prepared her for every possible combat situation. Behind her, her Marines advanced with mechanical precision, clearing each room with tactics the Korath had never seen before. Surrender, Martinez called out in perfect Korath as she cornered the ship's captain and his bridge. Your crew is dead or captured. You have fought with honor, but the battle is over. Captain Gorthak raised his plasma rifle, but Martinez's return fire cut him down before he could pull the trigger. She had not waited for him to fire first, had not given him time to make a heroic last stand. She had simply killed him as efficiently as possible. This same scene played out across a dozen Korath ships. Human boarding parties seized vessel after vessel, and the Korath warriors inside discovered that all their training in honorable combat meant nothing against enemies who fought only to win. War leader, Thrak watched his fleet being systematically destroyed and felt something he had never experienced before. Helplessness. Half his ships were chasing false signals and fighting each other over honor disputes. The other half were being boarded and captured by human Marines who seemed immune to fear, pain, and the concept of fair play. Signal retreat, he ordered. Sir? His communications officer asked in shock. The Korath Empire does not retreat. It is against our honor code. Thrak grabbed the officer by the throat and lifted him off his feet. Honor codes do not apply when fighting demons. Signal retreat immediately or I will throw you out of an airlock. The retreat order went out, but it was too late. The human ships moved to surround the fleeing Korath vessels, not to destroy them, but to broadcast more psychological warfare messages directly into their ships. Korath warriors. Captain Rivera's voice echoed through every enemy vessel. Your war leader has ordered you to run from battle. According to your own honor code, he is now a coward unfit for command. Any warrior who follows the orders of a coward shares in his dishonor. The Korath fleet dissolved completely. Some ships obeyed the retreat order and tried to flee. Others refused to follow a disgraced commander and continued fighting. Still others began attacking each other to determine who should lead them. The Iron Wall formation became a scattered mess of confused, panicked, and angry ships, fighting 3 different battles at the same time. News of the Korath Empire's complete surrender spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours of war leader Thrak's defeat, emergency sessions were called on every major alien homeworld. The impossible had happened. Humanity had not just won a battle, but had utterly destroyed the most powerful military force in the galaxy. On Nexus Prime, Speaker Thex-9 convened an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. The massive chamber was filled with panicked alien ambassadors, all talking at once in dozens of different languages. Some demanded immediate action against humanity. Others suggested trying to negotiate. A few suggested fleeing to the Galactic Rim and hoping the humans would not follow. Ambassador Vex Prime 7 of the Vex Syndicate slammed his hand on his table, demanding attention. The human threat must be eliminated immediately, he declared. If we allow them to grow stronger, they will destroy all of us. Commander Zeth Alpha of the Zephyrian Collective nodded, its insect-like head clicking as it spoke through its translation device. The collective agrees. The humans have shown they are a disease that will spread throughout the galaxy, if not stopped now. From his elevated platform, Speaker Thex 9 called for order. The Council recognizes that humanity has become a clear threat to galactic stability. The question before us is how to respond to this threat. Ambassador Kellen of the Altair Republic, one of the few species that had consistently supported human positions, stood up slowly. Perhaps we should ask ourselves why humanity chose violence after 50 years of peace. The Korath murdered 50,000 innocent colonists. When we refused to seek justice for those deaths, we told humanity that their lives have no value to us. The Altarians speak wisdom, added Ambassador Yoth of the Centauri Union. We have treated human kindness as weakness for decades. Now we are surprised that they have stopped being kind. Vex Prime 7's voice rose to a shout. It does not matter why they chose violence. They have proven they are capable of destroying any one of us. Together we can still stop them before they become unstoppable. Speaker Thex 9 nodded grimly. The motion before this council is the formation of the Grand Alliance for Galactic Security. All member species will contribute ships and resources to eliminate the human threat. Vote now. The vote was swift and decisive. 38 species voted to form the Grand Alliance and declare war on humanity. Only 5 species voted against the measure, the small, peaceful races that had always supported human positions. Within days, the largest fleet in galactic history began assembling near the Vega system. Over 2,000 ships from dozens of different species, carrying the combined military might of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Collective contributed their hive mind coordination abilities. The Vex Syndicate provided funding and mercenary forces. The remaining Korath ships joined the fleet seeking revenge for their humiliation. Admiral Keth Prime of the Rigelian Navy was chosen to command the Grand Alliance fleet. He was considered the greatest military tactician in the galaxy, a genius who had never lost a battle in 40 years of warfare. The humans defeated the Korath through surprise and psychological warfare, he announced to his gathered commanders. They will not surprise us. We know their tricks now. We outnumber their entire fleet by more than 10 to 1, and we have the combined tactical knowledge of every species in the galaxy. But as the Grand Alliance prepared for war, they discovered that the humans had not been idle during the weeks since the Korath defeat. On the industrial world of Kepler Prime, Vex Syndicate factories began exploding one by one. At first, the explosions seemed like accidents or equipment failures. Then pattern analysis showed that every explosion had been carefully planned to cause maximum economic damage while minimizing worker casualties. Across Vex space, their entire manufacturing infrastructure was being systematically destroyed by saboteurs who seemed to know exactly where to strike. In the Rigelian home system, their quantum communication network began experiencing strange glitches. Messages were delayed, rerouted, or disappeared entirely. Military coordination became impossible as fleet commanders lost contact with each other and with their home bases. The Zephyrian Collective faced a different kind of attack. Their hive mind communication network, which had made them so dangerous in battle, suddenly began experiencing interference. Individual Zephyrians found themselves cut off from the collective consciousness, experiencing individual thought for the first time in their species' history. The experience was so terrifying that many of them became catatonic from shock. Most disturbing of all were the broadcasts that began appearing on every alien communication network simultaneously. The broadcasts showed detailed information about each alien species' military capabilities, economic weaknesses, and secret government activities. Information that should have been impossible for humans to obtain. Citizens of the galaxy, the broadcast began, showing a human woman in a simple blue uniform. It was Sarah Chen, former ambassador to the Galactic Council. You have been lied to by your governments. They tell you that humans are dangerous invaders who threaten your way of life. The truth is simpler. We are people who were pushed too far. The broadcast showed footage of human aid workers helping alien refugees, human doctors treating alien diseases, human engineers building infrastructure on alien worlds. It showed 50 years of human kindness being repaid with contempt and mockery. Then it showed footage of the New Hope colony ship being destroyed, followed by images of the Galactic Council voting to censure humanity for being upset about the massacre. "We spent 50 years trying to build peace," Sarah continued. "We offered friendship to species that saw friendship as weakness. We offered cooperation to species that only understood dominance. We tried to be the good neighbors, the helpful allies, the voice of reason in a galaxy that had forgotten what reason looked like." The broadcast showed detailed intelligence files on every member of the Galactic Council, revealing corruption, war crimes, and secret deals that had never been made public. "Your leaders formed the Grand Alliance not to protect you from human aggression, but to protect themselves from human justice. They fear that if humanity is allowed to bring order to the galaxy, their crimes will be exposed and their power will end." The broadcast ended with a simple message: humanity does not seek to conquer the galaxy. We seek to civilize it. Any species that chooses peace will find us the most generous and helpful neighbors they have ever known. Any species that chooses war will discover why Earth's children learned to survive on a world where everything tried to kill them. The psychological effect of the broadcasts was devastating. Across dozens of worlds, civilian populations began questioning why their governments were preparing for war against a species that had spent 50 years trying to help them. But the Grand Alliance leadership was committed to their course of action. Admiral Keth Prime ordered the fleet to advance toward the Sol system, planning to destroy Earth before humanity could cause any more disruption. The Grand Alliance fleet never reached Sol. As they traveled through hyperspace toward the human home system, they encountered something no alien species had ever seen before: human ships that had been waiting for them. Not 47 ships like the force that defeated the Korath, but over 800 vessels emerging from hyperspace in perfect coordination. "Impossible," Admiral Keth Prime breathed as his sensors showed the scope of the human fleet. "Our intelligence said they only had a few dozen ships." His tactical officer, Commander Yex of the Altair Republic, studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. "Admiral, these ships are not like the vessels that fought the Korath. These are larger, more heavily armed, and using technology we do not recognize." The human fleet moved with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. Every ship knew exactly where to go. Every weapon fired at exactly the right moment. Every maneuver was coordinated with mathematical perfection. Admiral Keth Prime tried to use standard fleet tactics: concentrate firepower on the enemy flagship, break their formation, force them into a ship-to-ship battle where numbers would matter. But the humans refused to fight the way he expected them to fight. Instead of engaging the Grand Alliance fleet directly, the human ships spread out and began attacking specific targets with surgical precision. They targeted command ships, communication relays, and supply vessels while avoiding direct confrontation with the Alliance's heavy combat units. Within the first hour of battle, Admiral Keth Prime lost contact with half his fleet commanders. His carefully planned battle. Formations fell apart as individual ship captains found themselves fighting alone against enemies who seemed to know their every move before they made it. But the real horror began when the Alliance ships started turning on each other. Embedded within the Grand Alliance fleet were sleeper agents, aliens, who had been secretly working for humanity for years. As the battle raged, these agents began sabotaging their own ships from within. Engine failures, weapons malfunctions, and life support breakdowns spread through the Alliance fleet like a plague. "Admiral," Commander Yex reported with panic in his voice, "the Rigelian cruiser Starfire is firing on our own ships. They claim their targeting computers have been compromised." Similar reports came in from across the fleet. 1 year after the Battle of Vega, the galaxy looked very different. The war that the aliens had started with such confidence had ended with humanity controlling most of known space. But the humans had not conquered for territory or resources. They had fought to create something that had never existed before in galactic history: real peace. Ambassador Sarah. Chen stood once again in the great chamber of Nexus Prime. But now she wore different clothes and held a different title. As the first human High Commissioner of the Reformed Galactic Council, she oversaw a government that actually worked to help its citizens instead of exploiting them. The chamber itself had changed dramatically. The elevated platforms where alien ambassadors had once looked down on others had been removed. Now representatives from all species sat at the same level, at tables arranged in a circle where everyone could see and hear each other equally. The council recognizes the representative from the Altair Republic, Sarah announced. Ambassador Kellen, one of the few aliens who had opposed the war against humanity, stood up with a datapad in his hands. Commissioner Chen, I am pleased to report that the new trade regulations have increased commerce between member species by 47% in the past 6 months. The elimination of exploitation practices has allowed smaller species to develop their economies for the first time in centuries. Similar reports came from around the chamber. The Zephyrian collective, now fragmented into thousands of individual minds, was learning to function as a democracy. Their representative spoke of the terror and confusion they had felt when first separated from the hive mind, but also of the joy of discovering individual creativity and personal relationships. Even the Korath had adapted to the new order, though their transformation had been the most dramatic of all. War leader Thrak, now calling himself simply Leader Thrak, sat with the human military advisors who were helping his people learn non-violent ways to resolve conflicts. The Korath Republic requests permission to establish a new colony in the Kepler sector, Thrak said, reading carefully from prepared notes. We pledge to follow all humanitarian guidelines and to share the system peacefully with any other species that wishes to settle there. Sarah smiled at the change in his tone. The arrogant war leader who had murdered 50,000 colonists had been replaced by a humble politician who was still learning how to ask for things instead of simply taking them. Permission granted, Sarah replied. The Terran Colonial Authority will provide technical assistance and medical supplies for your colonists. This was how the new galaxy worked. Instead of the strong preying on the weak, the strong helped the weak become stronger. Instead of species fighting over resources, they shared them and found ways to create more. Instead of war being the first solution to any problem, it had become the absolute last resort. But the peace was not built on kindness alone. Everyone in the chamber knew that human warships patrolled every system, that human intelligence networks monitored every potential threat, and that any species that chose to return to the old ways of conquest and exploitation would face immediate and overwhelming response. The difference was that humanity had proven they preferred cooperation to domination. When the Rigelian Mining Consortium had tried to restart their slave labor operations 6 months earlier, human forces had arrived within hours, not to destroy the Rigelians, but to free the slaves and arrest the criminals. The miners had been given fair trials and reasonable sentences. Their families had been compensated for their crimes. The former slaves had been given education, job training, and new homes on worlds where they could build better lives. This was the pattern throughout human-controlled space. Justice was swift and certain, but it was also fair and focused on preventing future crimes rather than simply punishing past ones. After the council session ended, Sarah walked to her office overlooking the station's central plaza. Through the massive windows, she could see beings from dozens of different species working together, trading, talking, and living peacefully in ways that would have been impossible just 2 years earlier. A soft chime announced a visitor. Dr. Elena Vasquez entered the office, carrying a datapad with the latest reports from the ongoing war crimes tribunals. Sarah, Elena said as she sat down, we have the final numbers from the investigation into the New Hope massacre. The evidence shows that war leader Thrak was acting under direct orders from the Korath High Command. The attack was planned as a deliberate provocation to test human responses. Sarah felt a familiar anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. The time for anger had passed. Now was the time for justice. Recommendations? She asked. The tribunal recommends that the former High Command members be sentenced to life imprisonment on a penal colony, where they will work to build infrastructure for refugee resettlement. Their assets will be used to fund memorial scholarships for the families of the New Hope victims. Sarah nodded. It was a fitting sentence. The Korath leaders who had caused so much suffering would spend the rest of their lives helping to repair the damage they had done. Admiral Marcus Rivera entered the office as Elena was leaving. The man who had led humanity's military campaign now oversaw the transformation of former enemies into peaceful allies. Admiral, Sarah said, how goes the integration process? Rivera sat down heavily in his chair. The past year had aged him considerably, but there was satisfaction in his eyes. Better than we hoped. The Vex Syndicate's former mercenary fleets have been completely converted to humanitarian missions. They are now providing security for refugee convoys and disaster relief operations. Their pilots say it is more fulfilling work than anything they did as hired killers. He activated a holographic display showing troop movements throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrian military units have been the biggest success story. Once they learned to think as individuals, they became incredibly creative tactical planners. Several of our best fleet commanders are now former collective officers who are eager to use their skills for peacekeeping instead of conquest. Sarah looked at the display and marveled at what they had accomplished. Former enemies working alongside human forces to protect the weak and maintain order. Species that had hated each other for centuries now cooperating on joint projects. A galaxy that had known only war for thousands of years now experiencing genuine peace. Any problems? She asked. Rivera's expression grew more serious. 3 minor incidents. A group of Vex extremists tried to restart the slave trade in the Outer Rim. A Korath splinter faction attempted to seize control of a mining colony, and some Rigelian separatists declared independence and tried to claim an entire star system for themselves. Responses? The Vex slavers were arrested by a joint human-Altarian task force. The slaves were freed and the criminals are awaiting trial. The Korath separatists were defeated by their own people. Apparently, the new generation of Korath leaders considers the old ways to be shameful. The Rigelian separatists surrendered when they realized that no other species supported their cause. Sarah smiled at that last report. The galaxy had changed so fundamentally that would-be conquerors could not even find allies among their own species. The most interesting development, Rivera continued, is that we are starting to receive requests for military assistance from species outside our controlled territories. The Andorian Empire, which refused to join either side during the war, is asking for help dealing with pirates in their space. The Centauri Federation wants human advisors to help them reform their military. This was perhaps the most significant change of all. Instead of fearing human military power, alien species were beginning to request it. They had learned that human soldiers did not conquer territories. They protected the innocent and maintained peace. A communication alert interrupted their conversation. The main screen in Sarah's office activated to show the face of Captain Torres, commander of the exploration vessel TDS Discovery. Commissioner Chen, Torres reported, we have made contact with a new species in the Perseus Arm. They call themselves the Hegemony, and they control approximately 200 star systems. Their initial response to our diplomatic contact was aggressive. Sarah sighed. The galaxy was vast, and humanity had only established control over about half of known space. There were still species out there who had not learned the lessons that the war had taught. Details, Captain. They demanded that we surrender immediately and prepare for conquest. When we attempted to explain that we come in peace, they opened fire on our ship. We were forced to retreat, but not before their fleet commander transmitted a message declaring war on all human territories. Rivera leaned forward with interest. Fleet strength? Approximately 400 ships, Admiral. Their technology seems to be roughly equivalent to the old Korath Empire, but their tactics are more sophisticated. They appear to have learned from our previous battles and adapted their strategies accordingly. Sarah felt a familiar weariness settle over her. They had hoped that news of humanity's victory over the Grand Alliance would convince other species to choose diplomacy over war. But there would always be some who believed that they could succeed where others had failed. Recommendations? She asked. Captain Torres looked uncomfortable.